Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Movie Mortis from Movie Madness Lives. I'm Nick.
And I'm Drew.
And Tim.
And this is our podcast where today we'll be discussing Drew's favorite movie. I'm going to let him do the honors.
The greatest movie of all time, Jaws.
Dun 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 dun. Yeah, we're starting with the John Williams theme.
Dude, you went from the Jaws theme to Star Wars.
That's literally part of the Jaws theme. It's like da na 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 dun 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 dun. Like, you know, it has that little that like bass or whatever. I'm not a music nerd, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I just think you might have gotten some of the notes wrong.
If you have been living under a rock for Lord knows how long, Jaws is about a shark that terrorizes Amityville Island.
Amity Island, not Amityville. You're thinking of the Amityville horror.
Amity Island. I'm sorry. I await execution.
Dude, I am such a hardcore Jaws fan, and I've seen this movie so many goddamn times that I will correct you for even the slightest mistake when it comes to information about this movie.
I respect that. I actually respect that. Not gonna lie. Anyways, yeah, Jaws about shark.
So I guess where do you guys want to start? Because it's like that's kind of the difficult thing with the movie like this. Where do you start?
I mean, I've already sang the John Williams soundtrack, so let's friggin' talk about that. That song is iconic for a reason because it builds up the shark attack, like literally, like dun 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 dun, like that shark is approaching. It's coming for you. It's the movie equivalent of the Sonic the Hedgehog drowning theme.
Yes.
Yes, you fought.
And also too, it's also very simple. It's only two notes played over and over.
That's true.
And something interesting to think about is that when John Williams was composing the score for Jaws, when he played it for Steven Spielberg initially, by the way, Steven Spielberg is the director for the one person who's watching this that doesn't know that. Mm-hmm. When he played it for Steven Spielberg initially kind of laughed and kind of thought it was a joke because he was like, "This is way too simple." But then he played it for him again, and again, and again, and he's like, "You know what? I think this actually works." And movie history was made. Exactly. And now going to the beach has never been the same.
Yeah, if I recall, didn't he compose Jaws when he was like 43 years old?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Right. It's
never I know John Williams started, because John Williams, I think, started working in like the 50s, I think. A lot of people don't know that. He started working in like the 50s. Yeah, so yeah, he was probably in his 40s when he did Jaws.
I remember I saw a post somewhere saying, is like 20 something years old too late to lock in? And someone said, freaking John Williams made Jaws when he was 40 something years old. So that's kind of cool. But I think there's also other songs in the soundtrack I noticed in my second watch that aren't just like the classic Jaws theme, but there's also like the moment where they're sailing out to go hunt down Jaws on the orca. Like it sounds like something
it's called the shark. He's not called Jaws in the movie. It's just called the shark.
Well, okay. Well, they're gonna hunt down the shark on the orca. Like, there's a song in it it kind of sounds like something out of like Indiana Jones or Star Wars. Like, again, that's like that John Williams. He's got that texture to his music, and we gushed about John Williams in the indie episode and the Star Wars episode. I don't know what else to add, but I will throw in a lifeline. Tim, what are your thoughts on the Jaws soundtrack?
I mean, it's obviously memorable and stuff. So, I did remember seeing a scene of it on TV where there was like two boys like faking the shark attacks and stuff while a woman was like seeing the real shark. I remember that on TV years ago, but
oh yeah,
it's just definitely memorable. So yeah,
I'm no marine biologist, but the shark kind of acted pretty smart, where it's just like, I could, I could have attacked all those people or those fake kids, but no, I'm just going to attack the small lake.
Dude, it's funny. A lot of marine biologists actually hate this movie
Really?
And why is
because
that?
because after this movie came. So here's something interesting. Peter Benchley, who wrote the Jaws novel that the movie is based on,
Mm-hmm.
grew to regret writing the novel
Why?
because after the success of the movie, a lot of people took the movie as like, oh, sharks are monsters. They need to be eradicated. Blah 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 blah. Shark hunting increased in worldwide after that. People just killing sharks just for fun, for sport, or whatever, because they think the sharks are monsters or whatever. And so the sharks, a lot of species of sharks, including the great white shark, which is what the shark in this movie is, became endangered species in part because of people's response to this movie. Because like they thought that sharks were, they used this movie as justification to just exterminate sharks, essentially.
Really?
Yeah,
Which
and
the funny thing is,
and that had a really bad effect on the marine ecosystem all over the
damn.
world.
Thanks a lot, Jaws.
But here, as a big fan of this movie, I will defend that's not the movie's fault.
Oh yeah.
That's people being stupid and thinking that, oh, Jaws, this is a true depiction of sharks or whatever.
Yeah, it caused a lot of hysteria actually. Like not only with people afraid of going to the beach, but the fact that holy shit, let's go kill some sharks. They're man eaters. When now I did do a little bit of research, but apparently shark attacks are very rare.
Oh, they're like on average, I think one or two every like 2 years or so.
Yeah,
They're very rare.
And
Like
most
you're actually statistically more likely to be struck by lightning than you are to be attacked by a shark.
not
In
to
fact,
mention
I mean, being attacked by a shark in the ocean really isn't any more likely than being attacked by a bear when you're going hiking in the woods.
that's fair. And from what I hear, sharks actually hate the taste of humans.
Oh yeah,
And the only reason why I attack them because
they think
their
we're gross.
eyesight is really terrible. Their eyesight is really horrible.
Yeah, the only way whenever they see an object that they don't recognize, the only way they could test it out for themselves is to bite it.
Mm.
But the problem is because sharks have such strong, no pun intended, jaws and really sharp teeth, rows and rows of sharp teeth, some shark bites, even if they're not like malicious intent on the part of the animal, can still end up being fatal, depending on the circumstance. But even then, there's like, I think statistically, like there's like one shark-related death every like 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very rare.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because aren't sharks normally, aside from the usual hunting, aren't they normally peaceful creatures?
Yeah, I mean, they usually, it's interesting because sharks actually spend most of because their digestive system is so slow, um, they're not hunting that often.
Mm.
Like because a shark can eat like a seal or whatever and be full for weeks. And so
Dang.
they just swim around peacefully for the most part.
Interesting.
Even like great white sharks and tiger sharks or whatever. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you provoke them, they'll still attack you if you provoke them. If you be an idiot.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to think they're still at the end of the day wild animals, and they're gonna do wild animal shit.
That is true. Very, very true.
But hey, if you don't want to be attacked by a shark, don't enter their territory.
That's true. I mean,
just like the example I brought up a few minutes ago of hiking in the woods. You're entering the bear's territory. It's like they're gonna defend their territory.
that's true. Yeah. It's like Bruce the shark doesn't want to eat fish or people. Fish are friends, not food. Or humans are friends, not food. Except for the poachers.
Here's another funny little tidbit. The shark that they used in the movie Jaws, the mechanical shark they had, was actually nicknamed Bruce, named after Steven Spielberg's lawyer.
No way.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
was Finding Nemo really referencing Jaws?
probably yes.
That's crazy.
I mean, how can you not make a shark-related anything and not reference Jaws at some point, even subconsciously?
Yeah. I mean, there's the anime series JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but they're obsessed with rock bands more than they are movies. But I digress. I digress. Yeah. Fun fact: for some reason, I liked, even though sharks scared me as a kid, I still liked them for some reason. And Bruce was kind of my favorite character in Finding Nemo.
He was mine too. So
Nice. Wonder if that could have connected to something, being you liking Jaws so much.
I fucking love this movie, man. I mean, so here's something else I kind of want to get into.
Yeah, sure.
I think so. There's this. So one thing that this movie does really well, on top of everything, is that it does a really good. It's kind of two genres of movies. The
Yeah.
first half of it is kind of is a horror movie, and then the second half is more of like a seafaring adventure movie. I was kind of thinking
Oh
about that
yeah.
when I was rewatching it the other night. The second half of the movie really has a very adventuristic feel to it.
Oh,
Not just
absolutely.
because not just because that's where a lot of like the action is of them fighting the shark, but even just the way the score is. It sounds more uplifting and
Oh
adventure-y
yeah,
compared
like
to
I
like the
mentioned,
first half.
the score when the orca is sailing out to go hunt down the shark. Like I said, it's got
Yeah,
that adventurous feeling.
there's even a bit of a main somewhat motif for the second half of the movie. You'll kind of notice it if you actually listen to the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it sounds like something like dun 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 dun
Dang.
dun dun dun. It kind of
You know,
sounds like that.
you're a super fan of that movie when you can name more than just a dun 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 song from Jaws.
Yes, in fact, I'm wearing the T-shirt right now. Actually,
I think we're gonna need a bigger boat.
yep. Which, by the way, it's you're going to need a bigger boat.
I was just reading your
Not
shirt, man.
I. Not this shirt is actually a miss. It's a kind of a misquote,
Oh dang.
but it's you're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're gonna need a bigger boat.
Which, oh, by the way, that line was improvised by Roy Scheider.
Dang,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah, but it works because
Mm-hmm.
I think the reason that the line works is because in that scene, Chief Brody sees the shark kind of up close for the first time. It kind of jump scares him,
Mm-hmm.
and something that's established throughout the movie is that Chief Brody hates the water.
Oh yeah.
Um,
It even says that in the
but
end of the movie too.
yeah, yeah. And so it's like it plays on his aquaphobia,
Ooh.
because he's scared shit. He's scared shitless. He sees this giant shark, and they're on this tiny boat. And it's just like, shit, man, we need a bigger boat. Because
You
that's
yell
something that
shark.
I think, yeah, because that's something that Steven Spielberg really let. So the script for this movie was really in flux throughout most of production. Um, they were even rewriting scenes the night before shooting, which back then this wasn't a standard practice at all. In fact, it was kind of a bad sign, and there were several bad signs while they were making this movie, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
But and so they would have the actors, Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, Murray Hamilton, all those guys actually have input on what their character would say in the scene that they would film the next day,
Hmm.
which is really cool.
That's neat.
Yeah, because
That's
there
cool.
were so technically there's two credited screenwriters for this movie. One of them is the guy who wrote the novel, Peter Benchley,
Mm-hmm.
who wrote the first several drafts of the scripts.
Uh-huh.
But there's also a Carl Gottlieb, who is one of Spielberg's friends, who was writing for TV. He was kind of brought in to add some more comedic elements to the movie because in the original draft, as well as in the novel, it was very bleak. There wasn't a lot of levity, and
Oh.
Spielberg wanted more levity. It just wanted to quote him. He's like, I didn't want my movie to just be this dark sea hunt. I wanted there to be some levity and some comedy.
Yeah.
Um,
He wants
and
the balance,
so,
and I respect that.
Yeah, and another guy who was there were several writers who were not credited, including who was a famous playwright by the name of Howard Sackler, who made some contributions to the script. He's the one who came up with the whole. I'm pretty sure he's the one who came up with the whole USS Indianapolis thing for Quint.
Hmm.
Um, and and John Milius, I think, also had some input. Another fairly famous writer from that film writer from that time.
Hmm.
So there was a bunch of cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, with the script.
Zam.
Um, but this is one of those kind of rare times where it all works out.
Hmm. That's neat.
So I
That's
guess
cool.
I think we should probably, since we were just talking about the characters a little bit, we should probably talk about the characters.
Let's dive into the
Um,
characters.
so
So
if you had to
I think
ask me, if you had to ask me which character was my favorite, I don't know, probably Chief Brody, but I like them all.
Chief Brody was really cool. I also liked the I I did kind of like I like the mayor how not the mayor not I like the mayor in that he was kind of an antagonist, but he wasn't really one. He was more focused on profits than he ever was like the safety of people, because he said in the beginning, you yell shark, we got a panic in our hands. It's the 4th of July, and he really wanted more tourists. And it's like, yeah, he still cared, but he just did the bare minimum, like, we'll just throw a shark hunting party or something.
He's
And
he's a see, he's a sleazy politician. That's what he
yeah,
is.
he is. Yes.
Putting profits above people's
Yeah.
safety,
I
which
noticed on my second rewatch. I've seen this movie 2 times in total. I noticed this on my rewatch is that, yeah, he is pretty sleazy. He cares more about making money on tourist season rather than the safety of the tourist. And next thing you
I
know,
remember I remember when I was a kid, I was thinking to myself, man, no way a mayor would be this short-sighted to risk
yeah,
their town's future over a couple extra dollars, and there's no way that people would react like this in a time of crisis with all the panicking and all that shit. But as somebody
yeah,
who works retail in 2020, I can tell you that that is exactly how people act. Anyways, moving on. Um,
yeah.
uh,
Oh,
um,
what about the oceanographer guy from like the university? He was kind of an interesting
Matt
guy. Like
Hooper. Matt
Hooper.
Hooper played by the wonderful Richard Dreyfuss.
Hmm.
Um, he I like his character because I think for Chief Brody, Matt Hooper represents some semblance of sanity on the island.
Oh
Because
yeah.
everybody's telling him, he's like, no, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. I mean, even outside of the mayor, you have the guy from the Amity Gazette, who's like the newspaper writer, played by
Hmm.
Carl Gottlieb, one of the screenwriters.
Yeah.
Um, Even he's telling him, it's like, it's not really a big deal. The fucking medical examiner's like, no, the attack at the beginning was just a boating accident. Blah 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 blah. And then you have, but like he knows, it's like he saw the bite wounds. He saw. It's like there's no way a fucking boating accident
Yeah.
did this. And it's
Yeah.
like, and so even Matt Hooper, when he goes to examine the Chrissy Watkins remains, she's the girl at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, uh, he's like, this was no fucking boating accident. You are all crazy.
Oh
Just
yeah.
basically just straight up calls them out on it.
Uh-huh.
And it's like for Chief Brody, it's like probably relieving, like, oh my god, somebody who actually understands what's going
Yeah, like
on.
Chief Brody has like had some suspicions. Like he's the one who seems to trust the oceanographer. Like he's like, I
Yeah.
don't know. So it's like, oh, everything seems okay. He's like, I don't know, something just doesn't seem okay. And like Hooper was his like reassurance. Hooper was like his reassurance.
Yeah, because he's the shark expert.
Yeah.
Like he knows exactly what's
Uh,
going on.
what do we all think about the captain guy, the shark hunter? Like the guy who
Quint.
scratched the nailboard, going, "I'm good." Quint, yeah,
Quint.
Quint. Sorry, Quint.
How
Quint.
how dare you forget his name?
Cut me a break. It's been a long week.
Understandable.
Oh,
Um,
by the way,
you know,
happy belated 50th anniversary to Jaws, by the way. And then we can go back to
yeah.
Quint. So, anyways,
Yeah.
Quint.
Um, Quint, he's a great contrast to Hooper, because Hooper, he's a wealthy college boy, right? Whereas
Hmm.
like Quint, he's clearly from what's the word? He's clearly from a bit of a poorer background, right? He
Poor
seems to be a local
background, kind
guy.
of really did pull his bootstraps up. Like he has a lot of street smarts, and basically, he's just like, you rich boys don't know anything.
Yeah, yeah, and he's distrustful of Hooper because he's like, oh, you're the college boys who spend all day counting money and all that.
Hmm.
Um, and I think their little feud that they have going out throughout the movie, between Hooper and Quint, I think adds so much character to both of them because like you can tell that they're playing off of each other's view of the other, you know. And
Hmm.
also, it's all helped by the fact that the two actors, Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw, actually feuded on set during
Oh
this
yeah, I
movie's
heard
production.
about that. What?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I heard the two actors actually really feuded. Was all three of them or just the two?
no, just the two.
Yeah.
I think Roy Scheider, he was like he's kind of off to the side, you know. So like, I'm not getting involved in any of that
Oh
feuding
yeah.
shit. But
Yeah, because like the
one,
tension in them was real. In fact,
yeah,
this whole movie was a production nightmare for Spielberg.
yeah, yeah. But to give one bit of a Dreyfus and Shaw story. The one time where they were filming, you know, the scene toward the end of the movie when they're trying to tie those barrels to the cleats of the
Uh huh.
orca. So they were filming that scene, and so uh, I guess Robert Shaw. So it was just a shot of I think of Hooper and Brody, and so Robert Shaw, who plays Quint, decided to get behind the camera with a big hose and aimed it directly at Richard Dreyfuss's face.
Oh, that's
And apparently, according to Richard Dreyfuss, that was the one time on set he lost his sense of humor.
damn. Hey, before we keep going on about how hellish this production was, Tim, who was your favorite character in Jaws? Who was your favorite character?
Probably the let's see. I Brody is the guy with the glasses. The main
Yeah,
character. Yeah,
yeah.
I like the assistant more. You know,
Oh, yeah,
this.
Hooper.
Yeah. Him, the assistant. You know, I liked him more. He's funny. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hooper was nice.
yep, like him. I just, he just, he's so down to earth, and you'd think that this is a modern movie. Funny enough. So, he just
Yeah.
has that charm in him.
The shark broke down a lot, but
A
at the
lot.
same, and it was, and the most recurring phrase was "Shark's not working. Shark's not working."
They
Or
even made
or
a documentary. They even made a documentary titled "The Shark Is Still Working," which is
hmm,
or still not working or whatever about the making of this movie, which is
yeah,
kind of funny. But
but
do
they
you know
also
what's an
mentioned.
interesting story? An interesting story is that on this one documentary I watched, I think from like 2011, I think, um, one
Hmm.
of something happened earlier on, kind of early in the production on set. So they had the one of the mechanical sharks. There were several of them
Uh-huh.
for different reasons, for different types of shots or whatever. And Steven Spielberg's BFF, George Lucas, managed to get into the mouth of one of them. Yeah.
Nice.
And yes, that George Lucas.
I'm fully aware that yeah, Lucas and Spielberg are pretty close. Um, Although
Yeah.
Lucas isn't really making a lot of movies nowadays, but Spielberg is still on the grind.
Yeah. Um,
Anyways, but yeah, like again, like it's also they actually mentioned that when you go on the Universal Studios Hollywood tour, it's like they mentioned how troubling the shark was to work with, and of course
yeah,
they then
and that is a big reason why for a lot of the movie they don't show the shark
yeah
because they literally couldn't show the shark because it wasn't
yeah
working.
it made Spielberg be more creative and said it kind of I think he mentioned how it got him to think like Hitchcock and not show the shark.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely some Hitchcock influence in this movie, especially in the first half.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the only time a shark really gets shown more and more now is like the ending where they're fighting on the boat,
Yeah,
which
yeah. Which admittedly, if I have to think of like one thing to sort of criticize about this movie, is that once you do get a full look at the shark, it kind of looks a little fake at times,
oh yeah.
just a little bit.
Didn't they have a
But I mean,
shark
it's
model
still,
where the? Sorry, you first.
and it's don't get me wrong, it still looks better than the absolute fake ones they used in the sequels to this movie. But
Uh,
you know, it still looks noticeably somewhat
oh yeah.
fake.
I never
But
saw any of the Jaws
but
sequels.
but it's made up for slightly because there are actually footage of real great white sharks in this movie. For you know the scene with Hooper when he goes into the shark cage toward the end
Yeah.
of the movie.
Hmm.
A lot of those shots of the sharks are actually from real great white sharks that they had a team of shark experts, a couple by the name of Ron and Valerie Taylor, filming shark footage, like B-roll shark footage off the coast of Australia. And so um, they filmed real great white sharks to use in spots of that sequence. And in fact, Hooper, both in the book and in the original script, he was supposed to die in that shark cage scene.
Damn. So
But
Brody would have been the
but
only
what
survivor.
but yeah, but what happened was so the sharks that they were filming in Australia were only 15 feet long, and the shark in the movie is 25 feet long.
Damn.
So they had this idea. It's like, well, why don't we get a? I'm trying to use the politically correct term here. Let's get a little person to again, sorry, trying to use the politically correct term. Um,
It's fine. It's fine.
uh, but and so that'll make the shark look bigger. But what happened was when they were filming that scene, one of the sharks got stuck in the cage and just started thrashing around and everything. And so I guess the shark cage ended up falling to the bottom.
Fuck.
Um,
47 meters
the
down
guy,
much?
but yeah, the guy got out though. The guy got out.
Still,
Luckily.
that's horrifying,
Um,
man. It's like sharks
yeah.
don't
Oh,
want to
that
be
is
killed,
horrifying.
yet they
The
give
dude.
us reasons.
Yeah, that guy pretty much used up a lot of his air tank from sheer terror. Um,
Fucking hell.
but so that they so like the so like they these marine biologists, these shark experts, went back to Spielberg. They're just like, dude, we have all this exciting shark footage, but the thing is, it's like Hooper escapes,
Hmm.
because he escaped the shark cage. And there's all this footage of sharks thrashing around in an empty cage, and it's also very exciting. And Spielberg's like, you know what? We're gonna change the script. Hooper's gonna live, and we're gonna use that footage. And they
That's
use the
nice. That's
footage.
amazing.
Yeah,
It's actually it's really inspiring that directors are able to be flexible. It makes me want to be flexible as a creative as well. So that way, it's like again it's like Bruce Lee said, be like water. Water goes in the cup, goes and comes cup, and etc. Sorry, that's my own personal philosophy of what I'm trying to be in life. But anyways, Jaws, funny Kino shark movie. Yeah, that's wild, man. Like it's like as if the shark wasn't scary enough. They actually had that footage of like the shark thrashing around thing, and like I said, the shark cage falling below. That's like the plot to 47 meters down.
yeah. Just think about it. Some random shark off the coast of Australia rewrote a major Hollywood script.
Oh yeah, yep.
They should have given him a credit.
Mhm. You know, speaking of shark cages, this is real, and basically Discovery Channel has this weird bumper where it's like a bunch of guys in a shark cage, but the shark got so aggressive, started banging on the cage that the guy was trying to shoot with a harpoon, but he shot the ship, and the ship started sinking, and then like the Discovery logo pops up. I swear this is real. This is a real thing. I don't remember. I don't think I looked at it briefly, but then I'm like, oh, podcast time. By the way, that's not why I was fashionably late. I had stuff going on. But anyways, um, Jaws. But yeah. Freaking shark cages are scary, man.
I mean, I wouldn't want to go in one personally.
I don't want to go in one either. I mean,
but then again, I can't swim, and I'm afraid to death of the ocean. So
you can't swim.
the ocean scares. Nah, I can't swim.
Damn.
Never really learned how to.
Yeah.
even though I live in California.
Yeah, but yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, the only real life instance I know of someone being in a shark cage was Steve Irwin, and he was filming for Animal Planet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting to know. And like I said, for as a nightmarish production as Jaws was, Spielberg was surprisingly flexible. The only time,
Yeah.
though
Well, I think
and
he kind of had to be, you
yeah,
know, because all these things were going wrong, and there were, I don't know how true this is, but according to Richard Dreyfuss, Spielberg went home so stressed every day, and he was so convinced that because everything was going wrong, they were going so far, especially when they started to shoot the stuff on the ocean. By the way, they
yeah.
shot a lot of this movie on the actual ocean, which was its own host of problems. Because
Oh
one,
yeah, absolutely.
because the salt water malfunctioned the shark, but also
Yeah.
even shots that didn't involve the shark were hell because whenever they would have a shot lined up, a
Hmm.
sailboat would be in the background. Because remember, this was the summer they were filming it, and this was
Yeah.
before the days of Adobe Premiere where you could just digitally erase it whatever you want to. So
Yeah.
like they had to wait the whole time for the sailboat to disappear, and then once one would disappear, another one would show up in the frame. So like
Yeah.
they would lose whole shooting days because of fucking sailboats. Which caused them to go over schedule and over budget. And
Yeah.
the studio execs, the suits at the studio, would
Yeah.
apparently call the production every day and tell Steven Spielberg that he was going to be fired and that they would never. Nobody was ever going to work with him. They would never hire him. Blah 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 blah. Which
Yeah.
all of that, by the way, was Spielberg actually himself never heard any of that. It was all directed to one of the producers, Richard Zanuck. He would
Yeah.
take that. He would take the heat um, from the suits, and but because he knew Spielberg was so stressed about everything else, like he never let him. He never told him about any of that because
Yeah.
he knew that Spielberg was just so stressed. That would just add more stress onto him.
Yeah. Um. It's funny you mentioned that. I was like, Spielberg was actually he did not show up to direct the last scene. Like he was afraid everyone would throw him.
Yeah,
He heard rumors they were going to throw him overboard.
yeah.
So
Which apparent, which
he went home early and had someone else direct the last scene.
which apparently, according to I think it was according to Richard Dreyfuss or somebody. Apparently, that's become a Steven Spielberg tradition. He doesn't show up. He doesn't shoot the last day.
Hmm. Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if there's a website dedicated to analyzing which scenes Spielberg did not direct. Like not just for Jaws, but every movie he's ever been.
So for this movie, it was the ending shot of the shark blowing up. That's what
Oh
it was.
yeah.
But yeah, what I was about to say earlier, I think before I got sidetracked, but according to Richard Dreyfuss, Spielberg was so stressed that he would come home to his cabin in Martha's Vineyard where they were filming most of this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess he would put like a piece of celery or something under his pillow, and he would basically be like, "They're not really firing you. They're not really firing you." Because
Wait, why a piece of celery?
I don't know. This is all hearsay, but I don't know. But that's just to give you an idea. That's just how stressed Spielberg was because of everything that was going on, and he genuinely thought that his career was over before it was even get started.
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
That has to be stressful, man. I mean.
Oh God, yeah. And Spielberg has gone on to say on record, even in documentaries, it's like filmmaking Jaws was both the best experience of his career while simultaneously being the worst experience of his career. And apparently he still has nightmares about it.
Damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. It's funny. I think he tried to warn the crew of Waterworld not to film in the ocean because of his own experience. Like, guys, don't film in the ocean.
Yeah. I don't think any studio would greenlight that nowadays.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's crazy.
I think Waterworld's another day though. I have my own thoughts on Waterworld, and that's for another day.
It's crazy that they even let him shoot out in the ocean.
Yeah.
But
I wanted to mention one more thing while we're on the hellish production of Jaws. Apparently, one of the and Drew, you can correct me on this because this is your favorite movie of all time. Didn't one of the shark models had its paint damaged from the salt water?
Yes, actually.
Yeah, like turned to a different color.
Yeah, that's one of the many problems that saltwater has because the mechanical sharks actually work just fine in the freshwater tanks that they were using to test them over at the Universal Studios lot before shipping them out to Cape Cod for production. But then once they put them in the saltwater, that's when everything went haywire.
Damn.
Quite literally, because there were a lot of wires going around.
Yeah, shark's not working. A part of me wonders,
Yeah,
like, even though like the ship was like probably hard to shoot. What about the scenes on dry land, like the beach or the guy's
oh,
house or inside the buildings?
that is actually where most of the production actually went fine for the most part.
Oh, neat. So
Yeah,
it's just the second act.
yeah, because they shot this stuff mostly somewhat in order, which is pretty uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
They filmed the dry land stuff first because they knew that that was going to be the easiest. So, and then
Yeah.
they went to shoot the stuff on the water.
That's crazy. But no, not really crazy. That makes sense. That makes sense. The dry land stuff will be much easier than water. And then, of course, there's James Cameron filming The Abyss in an abandoned nuclear power plant tank, and that went the complete shit. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I don't really have a lot to say about Jaws. Like the characters are really cool. The camera work is amazing, especially with Spielberg not showing the shark, and it creates just more suspense. In fact, actually, what do you guys think was the most brutal kill in the movie? Like, by the shark. What do you think was the shark's most brutal kill?
Either Alex Kittner, the little kid, or probably Quint's death. But I'm probably leaning towards Alex Kittner.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think, Tim? What's the most brutal kill in Jaws? The first one.
Obviously,
not the second.
when Jaws straight up ate the captain, yeah, that was a pretty brutal.
Oh yeah. Like just the fact that you see him struggling and think, okay, he's not gonna get eaten, he's not gonna eat, and he's not getting his legs in. Oh, he has his legs in the jaws, no pun intended. And then like that final that final freaking like crunch where just like he spits out blood. It's like, oh yeah, he's dead.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Captain.
I remember this is somewhat off topic, but I remember like years and years ago, back when YouTube was honestly a lot better. People made someone made a sort of a recut of that scene, but they dubbed it over with the audio of when Family Guy, when Brian owed Stewie money. I remember that vividly. The title of the video was "Brody and Jaws Want Their Money."
I can just imagine like Brody just tossing the meat chunks at Quinn, pushing him over the edge, and be like, "Okay, give us our money, man." It's so funny.
It's so fucking funny. Again, back when YouTube was a lot better.
Yeah, there was also I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there was also a somebody like recreated all of Jaws in 30 seconds, but they animated it with bunnies. Like all the humans were bunnies.
That, yeah.
Yeah, like even the shark had bunny ears too. The shark actually had bunny ears. Like it was a regular shark, it just had bunny ears.
Okay, so to get back to a more serious note, because I want to ask you guys both about this, right? In my opinion, this movie has, I think, arguably one of the best monologues ever put to film, which is the USS Indianapolis speech. That's like, I want to say, a little over an hour into the movie. What do you guys think of that? What did you guys think of that monologue?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't really know. It's kind of blinking out on me, so I'm not sure if I must have missed it or just didn't leave an impact on me.
It's the scene when Brody, Hooper, and Quint are on the Orca. It's that night, and they're comparing scars. You know, they're comparing each other's scars. And Brody asks Quint, "What's that thing on your arm? What's that scar on your arm?" And he goes, "Oh, that's a tattoo. I had it removed." And so Hooper asks him, "Like, hey, what's?" This is kind of a funny moment, but Hooper, he's like, "Wait, let me guess. Mother." And he just starts laughing. But Quint just kind of leans over and he goes, "Actually, that's the USS Indianapolis." And Hooper stops laughing and he goes, "You were on the Indianapolis?" And he goes on to tell the story about the USS Indianapolis, and because he was on it, and tell him about his experience. And it was added into the script by that Howard Sackler guy, that playwright, because he was like, "You need to establish a reason why Quint hates sharks so much, and this is why." I'm kind of struggling to. How do you not remember this scene?
But
The scene is so good.
I mean, when you tell me about when you look back on it, it's like the only somber moment between Quint, and Hooper, and just I don't know why that scene just didn't click with me as much as other scenes in the movie. I don't know what it was. I guess it was definitely the most human scene when they're out on sea anticipating the sharks. So I guess that does make sense. It is a good scene when you put it in that context. Like I don't know why that.
Dude, Robert Shaw's performance, and he actually had a hand in writing that speech, by the way. He. It's funny because they shot it on 2 different days. The first day, he did it drunk, and the second day, he did it stone cold sober, because Robert Shaw was from a long line of Irish drinkers. We'll just say that. And so they actually used parts from both the drunk take and the sober take, and they mixed them together.
Wow.
And you can't really tell which one is which. They cut it in a way where you can't really tell which one is which. Yeah.
Dude can act while he's drunk. That's admirable.
I mean, Robert Shaw, I believe I think he played one of the villains in the early James Bond movies, I think. He was also in Doctor Strangelove, I believe. I didn't see Doctor Strange. Doctor Strangelove. He was
Strangelove. I thought you were talking about Doctor Strange, the Marvel hero.
No. But yeah, he was a very well-known actor for the most part. And unfortunately, of the 3 lead actors of this movie, he got to experience the success of this movie the least, because he died not too long after the movie came out.
Oh, damn.
Rest in peace, he died. Bro. He died
in peace.
Yeah, he died 3 years after the movie came out. He was filming something in Ireland, and he had a fatal heart attack.
It sucks. He did. That's awful. That is awful, man. Like, imagine you're part of one of the biggest movies ever, one of those influential movies ever, and you just freaking die. Like, was it a few days or like before or after?
It was 3 years after the movie came out.
Oh, so at least he probably saw how successful it was. It was just like, huh?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, and I'm sure he had stuff lined up. I'm sure he did some stuff in 3 years. I'm sure he had stuff lined up when he died.
Yeah.
But Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss both had long careers afterwards. Scheider died in 2008. But yeah, they each had pretty long careers. I think Richard Dreyfuss is still acting. I think he's not really in anything high profile, but he's still acting. But yeah, I will say though about the USS Indianapolis speech. So, did you know that the USS Indianapolis, everything they talk about in the movie, did actually happen? Like, that's all real?
No, I thought it was just made for the movie.
No, that's real. So, the USS Indianapolis was a battleship in the U.S. Navy during World War II. And so they were the ones who were charged with delivering parts for the first atomic bomb. And so they delivered the bomb, and on their way back from delivering the bomb to the U.S. forces in the Pacific Fleet, they got hit by a Japanese torpedo. And so the ship sank in like 12 minutes or something. Very bad. I think there were like, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it had about a little over something, 1,000 or so crewmen or something. Um, and only 300 made it into the water. And so they did send out a distress signal, but it was ignored basically because they kind of thought, oh, there's Japanese subs in the area. It could be a trick or whatever, because their mission was very secret and everything. And so what happened was the 300 or so survivors of the ship were stuck bobbling in the Pacific Ocean for days, without food and water, and they were surrounded by sharks.
That sucks.
That
really sucks.
Yeah, the sharks, they did come in and feast on the remains of the people who died from dehydration or starvation or whatever. I think it
has
might,
to be
I think it might be a little Hollywoodized when they said that they attacked the living people. I think they mostly fed it off the dead, from what I know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but still, that's some scary fucking shit.
That is
like imagine being stranded in the ocean with no food or water in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, being surrounded by tiger sharks, which by the way is one of the more dangerous species of sharks.
Damn. Tiger shark. Meanwhile, great whites get all the media scrutiny, but tiger sharks are the real freaking deal.
Well, if you think tiger sharks are the real deal, bull sharks are the really real deal.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Hell. Damn.
But yeah, so all that's true. And in fact, when in one of the documentaries I watched about Jaws, they had USS Indianapolis veterans do interviews for the documentary, and they were like, I remember one specifically. He was like, my kids went to go see Jaws when it came out, and like they initially were like, you need to go see it. You need to go see it. And he didn't want to because I was like, I don't want to go looking at sharks because he has that trauma from what happened, of course. But I guess he eventually did see it, and when a lot of those veterans heard Quint in the movie talk about the USS Indianapolis, because it wasn't well publicized before that. It was actually kept classified for I think a few decades after that, because there was a whole fiasco with way too much to get into. But when they heard it, it's like they were stunned and they were just like, wow, for a lot of them it was hard to watch,
That's great. That I got nothing else to say on that. Tim, what do you think about the Indianapolis monologue? What do you think about the Indianapolis monologue?
Well, is all that even real?
Yeah.
I literally just explained that it's all real.
Yeah, so people starved on a ship, in the Pacific Ocean, and as people died, they were fed to the sharks.
Feasted on by sharks.
They were feasted on sharks.
Yes,
I think that kind of adds to the movie and just kind of gives more of that it feeds into that fear of sharks, especially if the Hollywood exaggeration, which I know Hollywood has a tendency to exaggerate a lot of things in true stories.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I was gonna say something, I forgot. Yeah, it does exactly what it was initially intended to do, which was to give Quint a reason why he hates sharks. And it's like, I think if you lived through something like that, you would probably, I don't know if you would feel the same, but it's like you probably wouldn't feel all that different either, Like imagine going through something like that and then,
Well, you could either have a hatred for sharks or humanity, or just not let it bother you, like that dude from The Big Lebowski. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. I mean, everybody's response to something like that is different, so it's like
Oh,
it's hard to
absolutely. Yeah, it's very different. I
say, oh,
mean,
this is for sure what would happen.
yeah, like I mean, I guess sorry, I would have gone on to a different topic, but when you mentioned how like that guy had a hatred for sharks, if you remember the show Tiger King, one person lost an arm to a tiger that behaved to a tiger, but they came back like after a few days because they still loved the animals.
Hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, hell,
that's
even
just
earlier in the movie when Hooper is at the Brody's house having dinner and everything, he's like, yeah, I got attacked by a school of like thresher sharks or something when I was a kid, and they ate my boat. And
I
and he was like, ever since then, I've been fascinated by sharks. You know, so it's like it's
mm,
more of that contrast between Hooper and Quint, where it's like
yeah.
Quint had a very traumatic experience with sharks, and he was like he used that as like it fueled his hatred for sharks. Whereas what happened with Hooper when he was a young kid made him become
Mm,
fascinated by sharks.
interesting. That's very interesting. That's yeah yeah that's cool. Definitely creates a contrast. I don't really got like I said, I don't really got much else to say about Jaws unless Drew, we can keep gushing about the movie because Jaws is definitely a really cool experience. It was and like you said, it has such a huge impact on the film industry at large.
I mean, you could argue that there's two periods in the film industry, in the modern film industry at least. It's pre-Jaws and post-Jaws.
Mm.
I mean, you could really split it up that way because can you think of a single other film that upended the whole film industry like Jaws did?
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane actually wasn't a hit when it came out,
Damn.
so
What about the
um,
Great Train Robbery? Yeah, I'm
maybe,
referencing.
maybe. But of course, that's different because the film industry was still kind of in its infancy back then.
Are we talking about good movies or do bad movies count too? Because I just recently saw a video about Heaven's Gate, which that movie again, this is what made me think we should do another Production Hell episode. But I'll just cut to the bread and butter. That movie spawn is the reason why a lot of movie studios now have like the Humane Society making sure no animals were harmed in the making of any
Yeah,
movies.
yeah. I think another movie that was I don't know if it's the same time period, but Cannibal Holocaust also had a lot of yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else got
Yeah.
anything to say about Kino Shark movie, better known as Jaws?
Where did you get the Kino Shark movie phrase from?
I have literally just made it up on the spot.
Well, all right.
That you don't find that insulting, do you? I mean, Jaws is a good movie.
No, not really. I guess one last thing I should probably talk about. That's two things. They're both somewhat related. What did you guys think of Chief Brody's family, his wife and his kids, and also what did you think of just the general town of Amity
The
at the
town of
beginning of the movie?
Amity does seem like a nice place to vacation, but I hope they get the shark shit sorted out real quick. Oh wait, I saw the movie. I didn't see the sequels though. I didn't see the sequels. I don't know if they still take place on Amity.
Here's something crazy about Jaws 2. Somehow Mayor Vaughn is still the mayor in Jaws 2.
What?
Somehow that guy got reelected.
Watergate 2
Yeah,
Electric Boogaloo. But anyways,
yeah.
oh yeah, as for Brody's family, actually no, before we get to Brody's family, Tim, what do you think about Amity Island?
It was good. I liked it and stuff. Yeah, just it's pretty good and stuff. Yeah.
I want to add on.
Yeah, felt like a real New England area town.
I don't. I mean, I guess I feel like Amity served more as a backdrop than like an actual town with a personality. Like we get that's like more of a summer thing, but I guess the personality does shine when like fear gets stricken, when the sign gets vandalized. Which, by the way, that sign is at the Universal Studios Hollywood lot.
Yeah,
This is not a
yeah.
product placement. This is not that
Yeah.
freaking secret kind of hat. But anyways, but yeah, just like, yeah, I kind of served as more as like a mood setting. No pun intended. But either way, I think it did look really nice in the summer. It looked like someplace you could walk on the boardwalk, the town walk, maybe go to the beach. But anyways, Brody's family. I thought Brody's family was kind of neat. It kind of came off like just like the typical nuclear family. Like you got the loving wife, the kids who the dad's looking out for, and
Yeah.
I actually thought it was pretty neat how now the shark became personal with Brody when it didn't attack, but it nearly
Yeah.
killed the kid, but instead went after a guy and ripped his leg off, and
Yeah.
and then like gave the kid like not a heart attack but just passed out from shock. He's like, okay, he's alive, but now it's fucking personal. And I thought it was kind of cool how like he told the kids not to go into the water because of the recent shark thing and everything. So they were a nice family. It was a nice family.
Yeah,
Plus I do
so
like how he owns a house by a dock. I think that's kind of cool. I'd love to own a house by a dock as long as there isn't any fucking storms.
Yeah. So I would like to go a little bit into detail because there was a lot of the changes that were made from the book to the movie were about Brody's family and the town of Amity. But
Mhm.
before I go into that, Tim, what did you think of Brody's family?
Yeah, they were cool. They're nice and stuff.
All right.
That's
So
neat.
there were a lot of changes made to the story in terms of from the book to the movie about Brody's family. For one, in the movie, you could tell that Chief Brody and his wife Ellen are happily married and all that. That's not the case at all in the book. They hate each
Really?
other. They're miserable. And Ellen actually eventually in the book has one of the subplots is an affair she has with Hooper.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can probably tell why that was cut out. That would have added a
Oh
lot more
yeah.
density to the plot. But also, another one of the major changes. So in the movie with Mayor Vaughn, you can tell that, he wants to keep the beaches open despite there being you know, a shark, a shark problem. Um, but we really don't, outside of him just wanting to keep the town open and blah, 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 and profits, we don't really get much motivation as far as like beyond that, as far as like why he wants to do that. In the book, we do. In the book,
Hmm.
there's this whole subplot about how um, Mayor Vaughn not owns, but he let's just say he owes a big debt to the mafia. Let's just say that.
No
Yeah,
way. No
yeah,
freaking way.
yeah.
That as well. Have you actually read the book, Drew, or just look up like differences between book and movie?
I've read parts of it. I've read parts of it. I do have a copy of it somewhere on my shelf back there. I tried to
That's
find it
cool.
before this podcast, but I do have it. Um,
Nice.
and
Yeah, I never.
also
Sorry.
more changes with the characters. Apparently, in the book, um, Chief Brody, his alcoholism was a lot more evident, and in
Oh,
general, he is not. He's a completely different character in the book. Same thing with Hooper. Um,
dang.
in the book, Hooper is like a typical blonde jock type character. And
Damn.
something interesting is that when Steven Spielberg read the book for the first time, he is quoted as saying that he thought the characters were so awful that he was rooting for the shark in the book.
That is so funny. That is so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, so all of those changes I think that they made absolutely work in the movie's favor. I think
Yeah.
probably most of us could agree.
Yeah. That's that's insane. Well, again, I don't really have much else to add on to this. Jaws is a good movie.
Jaws is the greatest movie ever made.
Jaws is a great movie. Jaws is a great movie. Drew, you got any more Jaws to gush about, or because I don't know. I feel like I covered. I pretty much said every single piece I've ever said. It's a nice movie. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Definitely a really nice movie to watch in the summer. But fun fact: there's one water park that's like a 30-minute drive from here. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do these things called summer movies where they'd play movies in the wave pool, and one of them was Jaws. It was mostly a lot of family and kids movies, but apparently Jaws is on there.
Yeah, it's funny because Jaws is actually rated PG, and like by today's standards, it's like really because they didn't have the PG-13 rating back then. In fact,
Yeah.
Jaws almost got an X rating, which was
An
the
X rating?
1970s. Which that's the 1970s version of the NC-17 rating. This is
I
essentially
thought that
the
shit was
rating
for
they
like
give
porn
to.
movies.
It is. It is. But the reason was because in the opening scene, Chrissy Watkins, the first victim of the movie, in the opening scene,
Yeah.
she's skinny dipping, which means she's swimming naked. And
Yeah.
there are some shots where you can clearly see that she's naked.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
a lot of the
yeah.
early cuts of the movie, you could tell that she's clearly naked. So they had
you don't see.
shoot it. They had to shoot it in a way to where it would appear more as a silhouette. But I guess in early versions of the movie, it didn't appear that way, so you saw everything.
That's crazy.
By the way, how
That
do we not
is-
talk about the opening scene? It's very good. It's very good.
It is, yeah. Though I think it's kind of strange how she did kind of wave around a little bit, like being dragged across the water. But it's still a nice opening scene where it's like, oh, mate, there's trouble brewing. We don't know what the trouble is.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't show the shark. So if you didn't see the poster for this movie or the trailer or anything, you would be like,
Yeah.
wow, that could be any kind of sea monster,
Yeah.
That could be a bunch of dumb little shits playing a prank or something. Really horrible prank, but
Does my mic still sound good? My webcam's glitching.
It's all right.
Okay.
One more thing I have to say, and it's about the opening scene. The way that scene was filmed is that they had Susan Backlinie, who played Chrissy, hooked up to these wires, these like sort of straps, basically, for them to pull her around, basically. And so they were pulling her in opposite directions a lot, which caused a lot of stress on her body. And so I guess she had to deal with some sort of like back pains for a while or something after filming the scene. So, and by the way, I think she was also an animal trainer as well. She was an animal trainer,
wow.
a stunt woman, and an actress. So, yeah, she
Speaking of animal
unfortunately
training,
she unfortunately passed away last year. Unfortunately.
Oh, rest in peace. Wasn't one of the original plans for Jaws to train real life great whites?
It was briefly, but then the producers realized how stupid that is.
It does. Like, how the fuck do you train sharks? You have to be Aquaman to do that shit.
To be fair, they really didn't know a lot about sharks back then compared to what we do know now. So that's probably part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make them jump through hoops like dolphins.
or do cool ass tricks like Shamu.
Yeah.
Which
By the way,
that.
another side story. Steven Spielberg was not the first director for this movie. They originally had a guy named Dick Richards, who was the original director, but they fired him because whenever they were in like a meeting or whatever, and he's like, "Okay, here's how we're gonna start the movie, you guys. We're gonna see a shot of the town, and then the whale is gonna jump out."
Wait, the whale?
Yeah.
Like
For some
he
reason,
said whale, not shark.
Yeah, for some reason he thought the movie was about a whale and not a shark. So they were like,
What do you think he was directing? Free Willy? Do you think he was directing Free Willy?
And so the producers, Richard Zanuck and David Brown, were like, you know what? We're gonna get somebody else to direct this movie.
Tim, are you hearing this shit, man? Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Must have had a whale of an ego. Oh boy.
All right, I think that's a pretty good note to wrap all this up.
I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for enjoying this episode. Be sure to like it if you liked it. Comment down below what you thought of this episode, what you thought of this movie. And heck, maybe suggest a movie we could watch, one that we are both willing to watch at least. Yeah. Remember, humans are friends, not food. And have a good day. And hopefully, it's still summer when this gets uploaded. Have a good summer.
It
and
will
watch out
be.
for sharks. Bye.